Ser-Giacomi, who is here at IFISC since 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago.
Yeah, a bit more.
Now, most of the time, this is a work on the context of the LINK project, which is trying to use networks to understand climate and the dynamics of the Earth. The title of the talk is Flow Networks, Characterizing Transport and Connectivity in the Ocean.
Well, so hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk about some work that we have been doing with Emilio, Cristobal, Vincent, Ruggero during these last 2 years here at the IFISC. And as Emilio told you, the idea is to approach transport dynamics in geophysical flows from a network theory point of view. Well, until now, we focus mainly on the ocean and on 2 dimensions. But it's important to know that generalization to other kind of flows and to 3 dimension too are not different conceptually. Well, we know that transport of water masses in the ocean plays a really important role at many different scales in many different contexts. Here, for example, you can see a schematic representation of the global thermoline circulation. These huge currents in the ocean that are really important to the global heat balance of the Earth. But here, this picture instead is a picture from satellite of an impressive, really plankton bloom in the Arctic Ocean. And also indeed in marine biology, for example, spreading of larvae and planktonic organisms is driven by the dynamics of the flow. And finally here, this is an oil spill in the Atlantic. Well, of course, also to forecast and prevent also pollutant spreading in the sea, it's important to consider the effect of the transport due to ocean current. Well, now we will define a way to construct networks of transport in the ocean. Of course, the ocean and the sea is a continuous object. So we have to discretize somehow this system in order to describe it as a network. So the first thing to do is to define which are the nodes in our network. And to do this, basically we discretize our whole domain under study in say 2-dimensional boxes, this beacon eye, a set of 2-dimensional boxes that cover the whole domain. And it's really important to impose a constraint of equal area for each box. In doing this, of course, we are somehow fixing a scale, a special scale in the system, and this introduces somehow a diffusion in the network that we are studying, because we are not resolving scales that are smaller than the box size, basically, the node size. Well, then, of course, we have to define what is a link in our network. So, given a starting time, t0, and we will see if during a time interval that we call tau, an exchange of water is occurred between 2 nodes. In this case, we will put a link between these 2 nodes. And the weight of this link will be proportional, should be proportional to the amount of water exchanged by the 2 nodes. Well, now the question is how to estimate the amount of water exchanged between two regions of the ocean. And to do this, we use a Lagrangian approach. So basically, we need a velocity field in the whole domain under study, a 2-dimensional, in this case, a 2-dimensional velocity field, defining for each time interest, and what we do is to reconstruct trajectories of ideal particles in the ocean using this velocity field. So basically, we fill each node, each box of the network uniformly with a distribution of ideal fluid particles. And then we perform a Lagrangian simulation, integrating basically the velocity using a Runge-Kutta algorithm. And what we get is trajectories over the whole domain. This is a snapshot, for example, of one of the simulation of only a few trajectories. And you can see how much is really complicated to extract information from this. Well, after this, we have all the information to define our networks. And what we do is to construct a transport matrix, P, that is defined in this way. Each element ij is proportional to the number of particles of tracers that moved from the box I, from the node I to the node j. And well, in doing this, we have to be careful. There are some problems due to, for example, numerical errors, due to the fact that also some of these nodes could be partially covered by land. So we have to normalize properly this matrix. But at the end, what we get is this analogy. So this matrix will be the adjacency matrix of our network. Each box, beacon I, will be the node I of the network, and the matrix element Pij will be the weight of the link between the node I and the node j. Well, we first applied this method to the Mediterranean Sea. So just a few words about the surface circulation in the Mediterranean. That is what we studied in detail. Well, the key point is that the Mediterranean is a semi-enclosed basin. It's a semi-enclosed sea. And it is connected to the Atlantic only by the Gibraltar Strait here. And the global budget between evaporation and precipitation is greater than zero. This means that if you would close the strait with a wall, the sea level would decrease like 1 meter per year. Okay, so this is why we have a net and strong influx of water from the Atlantic into the Mediterranean. Then, because of the Coriolis effect, this current entering in the Mediterranean is deviated to the right. Okay, and this is why, basically, because we have a counterclockwise circulation in the whole basin. Okay, we see this current, southern boundary currents, and some northern current circulating in the opposite direction. It's important to note that here, in this area, the flow is really unstable, it's turbulent, so we have strong instability, and this generates strong mixing, strong dispersion. That is something that is really important. While, for example, in the northern part of the basin, there are other phenomena like deep water formation that are also really important for the global circulation, also in the Atlantic. So, well, now let's see what our approach to the Mediterranean. We used data from a model that is the NEMO model, that is a quite realistic model. It's high-resolution ocean model with reanalysis, with observation from satellite and floaters. So it gives a quite good description of the reality. And we selected a layer of 8-meter depth, just below the surface, to do all the simulation, all the numerical experiments. Then we discretized the domain in more than 3,000 nodes, more than 3,000 boxes, as you can see here. The linear size is about 30 kilometers. After this, we filled each of these boxes with a uniform distribution of tracers, 500 particles per box, and then we performed lots of numerical simulation, of Lagrangian simulation, to build many snapshots of the network. Well, this is, for example, a visual representation of this network. Well, the important thing is that somehow we are giving, in this way, a coarse-grained description of the system. And this is important because in this way we are see. Yes. Well, the time window is basically we can tune the parameters to select several combinations. We have 10 years of data, okay, and so we can look, for example, different seasons in the same year. We can look at the same season in different years, and we can also look how the physics is different, integrating 1 month or 3 months, for example. So that's the point, indeed. We have these two parameters, the start and the end of the simulation, that we can tune to look at different things. The network resulting, indeed, is strongly time dependent. We can extract many snapshots, and the network that will result will be different. So yes, and what else? We are dealing with a network that is complex because it's directed, it's weighted, and temporal. Okay. Well, so now let's see how to analyze somehow this kind of transport network. And first, let's focus on local properties, on properties of single nodes of the network. So this means to look at the scale of a single box in the ocean. And we know that from the network point of view, we can perform many different measures, degree, strength, and so on. The degree, for example, in our case, the network is weighted, so we will have the out degree of the network that of one node, that will be the number of outgoing links from the node that we are looking at, and the in degree, so the number of ingoing links. And we can delineate two ways to analyze this. In a statistical way, so looking at the mean properties, the distribution of this measure across the whole network. Or, for example, since our network is specially embedded, we can plot locally the value of each measure that we are interested in to extract the geographical and spatial patterns, like in this plot, for example. But the final goal of this, at the end, is to build a dictionary between network measures and physical quantities in the ocean. And indeed, we focused on dispersion and mixing property of the flow. This means to look somehow how and how much water masses, water particles are dispersed by the flow. And well, a standard way to study this is to compute the finite time Lyapunov exponent field, that is this lambda here, defined in this way, that is basically the rate of separation of two infinitesimally close particles after, after a fixed time that will be tau in our case. this is, for example, a snapshot of the FTLA field for the Mediterranean. And red regions will correspond to high dispersion areas, and the opposite for the blue ones. So I will show you that it's possible to relate the FTLA field to some network quantities. So let's consider an infinitesimal blob of particle, an infinitesimal concentration like this one. Under some condition, this concentration will be stretched into a thin and long filament, okay, like this one. And we can estimate the length of this filament using the Lyapunov exponent field. Now, we can average this quantity over the area of a single box, I. And the result that we get is this one, okay? Well, the nice thing that we can relate this length with the out degree of the same node, of the node I in this case. This is because basically the out degree of the node correspond to the number of other boxes that are touched by the filament that is originated in the box I. So for this, the out degree will be proportional to the length of this filament divided by the typical linear size of each node. And this is the relation that we found, indeed. We can also push forward somehow this analogy, and we can define a family of Renyi-like entropies that are this one, this H, that are somehow measures the diversity of the amounts of fluid sent by the node I to all the other connected nodes. And this is this diversity is weighted in a different way depending on this parameter Q. An example, for example, if you do the limit for Q that go to 0, we found again the degree, the logarithm of the degree. In this case, indeed, we are not weighting at all the links. We are only counting them. But if you go to the limit, for example, for Q that go to 1, we found this other object. That is basically the Shannon entropy. Well, again, we can find a relationship between also this object with the FTLA field. So here you can see again the relationship with the degree, and here the relationship with the Shannon entropy. So somehow we think that this is, well, for every Q will extract the Eiger moment of the Lyapunov exponent field. And this is finally some check that we did with some numerical experiment for several different integration times, different colors here. And you can see there seems to be a nice agreement. Okay, just quickly to results. Here you can see the average degree, out degree for over 10 years for winter and summer during 1 month of integration. You can see clearly there is a seasonal signal between the two, is in magnitude and also in spatial pattern. We recognize well, especially in winter, the signal of the southern currents here, where we have lots of instability, loss of mesoscale activity and dispersion, and also some small features, like for example the effect here of the shelf break, or some gyres in the Tyrrhenian here, the Antolia gyres too. So in general, the dispersion pattern that we get from this analysis reflect really most of the well-known oceanographic features in the Mediterranean. Okay, but we can think now to analyze the network also from a global point of view. So to look basically at the global topology of the network. And to do this, in our case, for a partitioning community. So the problem of community detection in networks. To do this, we used a very well-known algorithm, that is the InfoMap algorithm. In the network community is quite used. And, well, there are several things for which it results really good for our analysis. And in general, we can say that our approach is different from all the other previous approaches that were based mainly on spectral partitioning. This is, for example, the output for two of the network. So we get this partition in regions of the ocean that correspond to area well connected internally by the flow, but with not so much exchange of water between each other. This is the hydrodynamical interpretation of community in our network. What we see clearly, and here you have the graph, is that the number of community decrease with the integration time. And this makes sense because we are mixing more and more the water, so the basin becomes more and more connected. We define also a coefficient rho that is like a merit factor for each community that estimates the leaking of water from each region, how much is really closed and coherent or not. And you can see that there are regions that results really coherent, and others that are not. And this depending, of course, also on the flow dynamics. And finally, you can see here, hopefully, these white lines. Okay, these are mean stream lines of the flow, and this is nice because most of the boundary of the provinces of the community result to be tangent to the streamlines, and this is a confirmation that really the exchange of water across the boundary is minimal. Well, okay, just a few words about a practical application of this. We know that in the Mediterranean Sea there are several marine protected areas, okay? But we don't know precisely how much and how are connected between each other by the flow. And this is important for the problem of connectivity at biological level, because larvae are advected by the flow. So biological connectivity is determined not only, but it's important to understand how it is determined by the ocean currents. So we try to define, you can see in these maps, each dot, each circle corresponds to an MPA in the Mediterranean. And we define three metrics here, three different metrics to estimate the connectivity of a single MPA. Here, in the first figure, is plotting the dispersal surface. So this is basically the mean area after lots of numerical experiments of the province that is containing a particular MPA. We can also look at the coherence of the same province, so not the dimension, but how much is close to exchange this region that contain the MPA, or to the interconnection, so the number of other marine protected area present in the same province, in the same community that is containing our MPA. So this is just to give you an idea of a possible application to biology, ecology, and so on. Well, now we focus on how to divide in region that results to be isolated in the ocean. Now we are going to look at the opposite thing. So understand the connections, okay? The main pathways that connect different regions of the ocean. And to do this, we use the concept of path that is very popular in complex network. It's a tool to somehow to unveil long-range connectivity between different nodes in the network. And the idea is to walk across the network, making steps, and each step corresponds to a link. And usually the analysis is done looking for the shortest path. So given a pair of nodes, we look for the path that minimizes the number of steps to connect the origin and the destination node. And from this, we can define many centrality measures in network, like betweenness centrality, closeness centrality, and so on. So now let's try to define and characterize a path in our transport network. Well, our links, our steps of the path are weighted, okay? And in particular, the weight of the network correspond to probabilities of transition between the two nodes, okay? And again, the network is temporal. So every time step, the weight and the network is changing. So how to define a path in our network? We can characterize it by the probability. And we define the probability of a path like the weight product of all the links that are composing the path. And the time scale, again, will be defined by the number of steps of the path multiplied by the single step duration, the single snapshot duration at the end of the network. And what we do, not for the shortest path in terms of distance, but for the most probable paths. So the path that's optimize and maximize the conditional probability of connection between two nodes. And here, this is a plot in which is plotted all the most probable paths from a start node here on the black star to every connected node, to every connected node after 9 steps of 10 days, so 3 months of time interval. And the color is proportional in a logarithmic scale to the probability of the path. This is to tell you how we do it numerically. Basically, we are dealing with a temporal network, and we transform this temporal network into a bigger static network. And this is done basically at duplicating, clonating each node at each time step. And after this, we can look for path in a static network. Path that will be, of course, causal. So the direction of time is conserved. After determining the set of paths that could contribute to the connection, we maximize this cost function that is the corresponding need to the product of the weights of the links of the path, and using a modified Dijkstra algorithm, and we find the most probable path. We collected the statistics over all the connected pairs of nodes over, well, many different numerical simulations. And what we see here, for example, is that we have a really a wide range in probability for the paths. We see for different step duration, in this case from 6 steps to 9 steps, that correspond to from 2 months to 3 months of time interval. These are the distribution in probability, spanning several orders of magnitude. And there are also other features. For example, the fastest path that we can also find by our analysis is not necessarily the most probable one. So we can have somehow a connection that is really fast between 2 nodes, but it's not the most probable one. And maybe we have to wait some steps more, some time to have the most probable connection. And also, and this is really related to the temporal feature of our network, sometimes the best choice to connect 2 points is to wait for some time in the same place. So we found sometimes paths that present the same node several times, because we are somehow waiting for the best connection that will arrive later. Well, then the question is, but what is the fraction of probability that the most probable path carry compared to the total probability of connection over all the paths connecting 2 points? And we can estimate this with this ratio. And what we found here is that indeed the most probable path is not carrying most of the probability. Okay, so we will come back later on this. What we did after computing all the set of most probable paths over many different, many years, 10 years of the model, well, we defined and redefined somehow the betweenness of the network using the classical definition, but looking at the most probable path and not the shortest path. And this is indeed what we get. This is the average over 10 years of the betweenness, considering paths of between 6 and 9 steps with a step duration of 10 days, so between 2 and 3 months. The interpretation is that this area, these I-betweenness regions that are almost one-dimensional, correspond to the pathways of transport, to the main corridors of transport. And passing by these corridors, we can connect many different regions of the ocean. A really important thing is that this result to be robust if we change the step duration, keeping the same global time interval. So, for example, you can look for paths of 3 steps of 1 month or paths of 9 steps of 10 days. Okay, but we are always looking at 3 months in total. Well, if you do this, the output that you get is more or less the same. So coming back to the problem of how much probability the most probable path is carrying, well, we wanted to address this question by detecting a subset of paths that result to be the highly probable paths. So not only the most probable, but a subset of paths that this time, yes, are carrying most of the probability. And we did this with somehow a perturbative approach of our algorithm. And this is what we get, for example, this kind of tube of paths connecting 2 different nodes. And sometimes you find that the tube is really concentrated along average trajectory, and sometimes you have also deviation. Well, now the question is, we could try to compute the betweenness using also this subset of highly probable paths. And what we get is this. So the two measures result to be really highly correlated. So basically, we are describing the same thing. This is because we think we try to compute the mean distance between paths belonging to this subset, considering the same pair of nodes, of course. And we found that the mean distance is not so large. So basically, the paths are more or less close to each other. And well, this is interesting if you consider that the number of most probable paths in our network is at the order of between 3 and 10% of the subset of highly probable paths. Okay, and this subset, the number of paths here, is less than 1% of the total paths in the network. So we are reading up a small fraction of paths that result to be anyway quite well, that are sufficient to describe the topology of transport in the network. Well, so to conclude, we think that this paradigm could somehow explain many different things in a unified view, that is the network paradigm. We think also that this discretization process that we do to construct the network allow us to extract the more robust and prominent patterns from the dynamic that is really complicated if you look in a continuous way. Well, I have to say also that almost all the analyses that we did are quite cheap from a numerical point of view. That is interesting too. Maybe except the most probable path analysis that require more computational. But all the other calculations are really cheap. And well, finally, we think that these ideas, these concepts, are somehow transferable to other kind of network, other kind of weighting temporal network, in which somehow you can define transport of something. That could be water, but also information or supplies or people, I don't know. So maybe not only geophysics. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
For questions?
Could you explain, could you come back to this info map
Uh-huh.
slide? Could you explain a little bit more? Exactly input into info map,
Which kind, sorry?
to which magnitude, to which quality are you applying the info map?
Well, InfoMap is a community detection algorithm. So you have to give the network to InfoMap the list of all the weights.
Because as far as I know, the original info map paper is not applied to networks. It's applied to, it's kind of PCA, right? It's applied to some elements of the barriers.
I don't know.
These ones are somewhat before that work. So there is another thing called informal. Because my first one testing, the first one was something that was not it was information propagation. This one is about network. So they apply the
This one.
sense of the previous one to produce it.
science paper. This is the one I saw. It was not about networks. It was more general.
When people did that, they got good, it's very kind of
Well, the other one was even more. But this application I knew from another PhD thesis. The second thing could you also come back to the slide in which you mentioned the entropies, these two entropies. S0 and S1.
This one?
This one, sorry.
Yes.
Critical to one case, are you able somehow to connect to the Lyapunovs more directly? I mean, do you have
This quantity.
Bayesian identity or something?
Well, basically you have to write the adjacency matrix element. This is the element of the transport matrix of the adjacency matrix, and you have to write this one in terms of Lyapunov. Okay, and well, after some algebra, you get this relation. So that's the idea. To find the relationship between H1 and well, of course, this quantity, okay, you see here, these are averaged over the box I, the node I. Okay, this is important. So we are not relating to the field, because the field is something that is defined in a point, okay, while our network approach is defined on a surface at the end, no? Because a node is a finite size box. So the relation that we found are with average functions of the Lyapunov exponent field on the box.
Yeah, so
This was found.
Bayesian identity.
This was from looking at papers on Bayesian identities, not the mathematical one, but the simplest one.
No, it's nice. It's a nice relation.
And I think it's interesting to notice that in principle then, because calculate option surface, you only need to have an adjacency matrix, you can define some kind of Lyapunov exponent for any weighted network. It's something that measures the dispersion for given nodes.
Interesting. Very interesting.
More questions or comments? Nothing more? Okay. No, thank you.
Ho visto che dipendevano dal tempo.
Eh?
Però che tipo di network sono? Una caratteristica, cioè li riconosci come tipologia di network?
Tu dici a livello statistico?
Se puoi dire sono
Ma-
di questa famiglia o dipende dal tempo.
Sicuro non sono scale free, sicuramente. Per esempio la distribuzione dei degree ha un degree caratteristico e in più dipende dal tempo di